despite what people really want to believe, Cristiano Ronaldo was first of all right about Man United, and then second of all he was right about the few things he said about the press. And I mean, it really doesn't surprise me, because the club has been ran so badly ever since Sir Alex Ferguson left. I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson was literally carrying that entire club, and when he left, nothing really happened. So, and really that was the problem. So when Ronaldo came out and did that interview with Piers Morgan, it didn't really surprise me about like some of the stuff he was saying, and he's been so right about other things that he said as well. But I'm just going to go through some of the things he said in that interview and really say why he was right about them and just how right he is. So just jumping straight into it, I'm going to use some clips from the actual interview so I can put forward that this is what he said. So it's not like I'm trying to put words in his mouth or anything. So jumping straight into it, the first point.
I knew that Manchester United wasn't the same, but I don't see that it was so big gap.
So really, first of all, nothing had really changed, like technologically. The kitchen hadn't changed, the gym hadn't changed, and even to some extent the stadium hadn't changed. So I really, like, obviously he's right here, because literally, you know, nothing's changed. He came back and it was the same as it was 14 years ago. So really, I think he must have been very shocked at this, because a club like Man United, with all this money coming in all the time, you'd think that they would stay up to date technologically, but clearly they hadn't. There had been, in Ronaldo's words, there'd been no evolution in the club since Sir Alex left. So really, I'm not surprised at really everything else that has gone on at the club with it not being run properly, because if you're not updating if you're not even updating the kitchen in your gym in the club, like, you're not going to upgrade the stadium, you're not going to have any evolution like technology wise. They may have updated some things technologically, but mainly they just hadn't really changed anything. So that was the first big problem. And then on to the second point, which was really more to do with the actual team and the actual club.
To reach successful like other teams, like for example Liverpool or Manchester City, Chelsea, they are one step behind or two because of this kind of mistakes. In my opinion, that they should improve and change probably the staff or the people, the directives or presidents, I don't know.
So he also went on to say that maybe they should change the staff and like the directors and all that, because clearly what they're doing is not working. And he's saying that they are a step or two behind the top clubs that's just perfect, because this could link in as well to the first point where he's saying, well, stuff hadn't changed. So they're behind on the facilities clearly because they've just left them, they haven't really changed them. And also they're behind on the technology because they haven't upgraded it, whether they don't have the technology to upgrade or they don't have the capability to upgrade, which, let's be honest, this isn't true. This is Man United. So they are also not signing the best players or the top players, which really is unlike Man United, because all the best players used to want to, most of the best players used to want to actually come to Man United. So here he was more than right on this, of Man United being one or two steps behind all of the top clubs. And I think over the past couple of years, especially now, even with Ten Hag, you can see that we're a step behind all the top clubs, and we're probably 2 or 3 steps behind the actual teams that are winning titles. Even though we won a Carabao Cup last year, we are multiple steps behind a lot of the other clubs. And as I've said, that is starting to show, even with the recent results we've had as well. I think it's really starting to show, and there's a lot of other clubs that really you would expect us to beat who are actually creeping up to us as well. So that is really disappointing and really worrying that some other clubs that you would expect us to be in front of are actually catching up with us as well. So the next thing he said was more about the actual players as well. So here is the next point.
They don't care. Some ones yes, but most of them no. But for me, it's not surprised me.
So in terms of this one, saying that they don't care, he's obviously talking about the younger players, and he's saying that really the younger players don't really care as much anymore about the game, and this is really something that it doesn't really seem like they train as much. They kind of just do the bare minimum. They seem to be of the mindset that, oh, I'm really talented, I'm at Man United, I don't really need to do much more, I don't really need to put in as much work. So they're not really staying behind after training to do extra practice. They're not really taking care of their body as well as they could. I mean, they're professional athletes. I've always been of the opinion that if you're a professional athlete, you should really take care of your body as well as you can, because that's your job. If your body breaks down, you can't play the sport anymore. So keeping your body as fit and as healthy as possible for as long as possible, obviously without doing drugs, because that's illegal and you're not supposed to do that and all that, that's really, you're responsible for that. So I just like Ronaldo said, I'm the same. I'm really not surprised that the younger players aren't as bothered, purely because this is what happens when you give such big contracts to such young players. They aren't as mature, so now it's like they're going to go off, spend that money and do really stupid things. They're going to go out drinking, they're going to go out probably hooking up with people as well and things like that. So it's more like they get given all the good stuff really young, and because they're not as mature, they do stupid things with it. And as some players, and as we've seen in the news, some players make really stupid decisions and more or less ruin their careers. So I think this is probably the one point that he is like the most correct on, because you've seen so many players these days just not live up. It's not like they just miss their potential, they don't get anywhere near their potential. And a lot of those players are the ones that get the huge contracts when they're really young. And obviously there's some players that will do well and they will come through and all that, but there's more and more players that are just don't really live up to their potential. And I think that it really, really shows also when they're not doing the extra stuff. They're just doing the bare minimum.
I'm not gonna give you points, but he don't do it the same procediment to every players. I'm not gonna mention players, but they don't do it the same way.
So here he's I think he's talking about how they're treated, well, how the players are treated by the not new manager now, by Erik ten Hag, saying they don't do it the same way. So players aren't really treated the same. Some players get like special privileges, really, and I think that has really, really shown a lot especially with the Ronaldo situation, where Ronaldo had a couple of bad games and he was just completely dropped. He was just dropped and he wasn't being played. But however, the rest of the team was playing terrible as well. So Ronaldo was singled out. No one else was dropped as well. Also, last season, this showed a lot with Bruno Fernandes. Our captain was throwing a hissy fit, literally a hissy fit, on the pitch, and nothing happened to him. Didn't get fined, didn't get suspended, didn't get removed of the captaincy, and didn't even get dropped. So this is one of the points that, if this is what he means, he's more than right about this one, because players really don't get treated the same way. The manager does have his favourites, and I think that is where it could link into some of the younger players not really caring, because they're not getting the same treatment as other players. Other players are getting favourable treatment, so they're on a huge wage, and then you treat other players, probably players that are better than them, giving them more privileges than them, and it's like, well, why should the younger players care if they're not going to get treated with this? They're not going to get treated like that. So I do think that this is if it is what I think he's saying, this is probably the most impactful thing that he's right about, and it's why I think that Man United might not do as well as people expect under Ten Hag, because you can't just go and treat players that differently. Like, if people are playing bad and you drop one person, you've got to drop the players that are playing bad, or you've got to stick with the team. You can't just drop like one or two players if most of the team's playing badly. And Ten Hag clearly didn't do that. And you've got to punish players for acting so childish, like when Fernandes does. I still don't get how he can be our captain, if I'm being honest, acting like that.
The owners of the club, they don't.
The Glazers.
They don't care about the club. I mean, professional sport. They give all the power to the president, the sport directive.
So at this point, I think a lot of people can agree with saying the owners don't care about the club. And obviously this is like, they don't care about the sports side. So they don't really care about how they do on the pitch, as long as they're making money off the club. That's all they care about. And I think where he said they give all the power to the president of the club, that really shows, and that is a really big indicator that the owners just don't care, because all the power being given to the president, and like the owners don't really do anything. The owners don't really seem to have that much power in the club, because obviously they don't want it, due to the fact that they only really care about the club making money for them. So this is another thing that he was more than right about. However, Man United fans have been going on about how they want the Glazers out for years, so I think that's at least something that Ronaldo and the fans can agree on. And I think it is a very big point, and it's great that Ronaldo actually came out and said this, because for such a big player to really come out and back up what the fans have been saying as well is another very good thing. So the next point he didn't specifically say, but it was kind of hinted on, that they don't really have the right structure to win. And I do think that he is right. If he meant this as well, I do think he is more than right about this as well, purely because it's like a lot of the things mentioned above, I just don't think the culture at the club is anywhere where it needs to be. I don't think they just got the right structure from the manager to the backroom staff. I really don't see how that is a winning structure when you've got players who can literally get away with whatever they want and they don't get punished. That's bad in of itself. Players being treated differently, the backroom facilities again not being updated, all of this stuff isn't going to help you be a top club, especially when all the other clubs are doing better and they have all of these things going for them when these things for you aren't going for you. So the last point really is more about it's more about how press and how people like on the TV look at things.
When you walked away at Spurs and didn't go on, Gary Neville said your behaviour was unacceptable, called for you to be punished.
They don't see the big picture. Why I react like that? What's happened?
So with this one, it's more to do with obviously specifically what Gary Neville said when he walked off against Tottenham. And I think this is really the perfect point to bring up, that people just tend to look at the things that are right in front of them. They really don't realise that these athletes are still people. They still have feelings like we do. And then people just look past that and just love to criticise them. They seem to forget that things off the pitch can affect the players as well. And everyone watching this video, you can all admit you've acted irrationally, you've acted out of place because of something that has been going on. Isn't really to do with the situation you're in. So for example, something outside of work, you may have acted out irrationally for a moment at work because of something that's been going on outside of work. And yes, you shouldn't do that, but if everyone can do that, then I think we need to just accept that professional athletes can do that, and they shouldn't do it. He did come out and said that he regretted it, but I don't think you should punish people that hard for something like that. Everyone does, and it's just like human nature as well. Plus, I do think it's incredibly hypocritical for Ten Hag to come out and say that he didn't bring Ronaldo on against Man City when we were getting thrashed in like the last 5 minutes out of respect for Ronaldo, but then he wants to bring him on 3 minutes towards the end of the Tottenham game. So this is the thing about Ten Hag as well. He's just been incredibly hypocritical there, but obviously because the media hates Ronaldo, they let Ten Hag get away with that hypocrisy. But yeah, I just don't think that people tend to see the big picture. and that really affects how they look at players, especially players like Ronaldo. So, yep, I do think all of those points really Ronaldo was right on. He's been right about a lot of things to do with Man United. He has said more, but this is really just more to do with that interview he had with Piers Morgan. And personally, overall, I don't think he was wrong to do the interview. If there's something wrong at a club, you can't speak out against it, like when you're right in front of the club. If you want to go and do an interview and say what's wrong at a club, I really don't understand the problem in that. I don't think he did it in a disrespectful way. He did it with all respect to the club, and he just said what was going on. He didn't say anything disrespectful. He didn't say anything that was incorrect. He just said that the club just hasn't progressed and he doesn't think he's been treated fairly, which he has every right to say. So let me know what you think about really what Ronaldo said. Do you think he's right about all of this stuff, or do you think he's not right about it? Let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Thank you for listening to this video, and I will see you in the next one.